Welcome to the new episode of Leaders of Growth. I'm Milan Savov, CEO of SmartLeak, where we help B2B SaaS companies get to the top of AI searches and Google and turn visibility into high organic leads. This podcast has become like a place where real SaaS builders and growth leaders share what actually works, the stories, the systems, and the strategy behind scaling modern companies. And today's guest is someone who has mastered the modern go-to-market engine, not in theory, but in practice. So I'm joined by Bill Stathopoulos, CEO of SalesCaptain. By your opinion, what's like the main mistake which actually SaaS founders are make when they're trying to set up the outbound as a channel for filling the pipeline?
The number one thing people get wrong is they assume the channel doesn't work because they've failed with their first, second, or third campaign.
So, welcome to the new episode of Leaders of Growth. I'm Milan Savov, CEO of SmartLeak, where we help B2B SaaS companies get to the top of AI searches and Google and turn visibility into high organic leads. This podcast has become like a place where real SaaS builders and growth leaders share what actually works, the stories, the systems, and the strategy behind scaling modern companies. And today's guest is someone who has mastered the modern go-to-market engine, not in theory, but in practice. So I'm joined by Bill Stathopoulos, CEO of SalesCaptain, which is an outbound AI-driven go-to-market agency. And he's also the author of Cold Email Secrets and someone who has interviewed icons like Seth Godin, Ariana Huffington, and CMOs of Samsung and HubSpot. So simply put, Bill understands how go-to-market and outbound goes in a very few people do, and someone who can share huge value with us today. So Bill, welcome to the Leaders of Growth podcast.
I appreciate the invite, man. Thank you for having me.
How are you today?
I'm good. It's a kind of a sunny day, so I'm excited about that. Just finding small ways to be happy, right? That's it.
Yeah. So maybe I missed something in the introduction. So how do you usually represent to people which you're meeting for first time?
I'm the worst at making intros. I typically tell people I do B2B marketing or I just do marketing, depending on their level of sophistication. What we do is at SalesCaptain is at the forefront of where the market is. And I would say for any agency doing implementation, they need to be there. So sometimes it's relatively hard to explain it in like a one kind of sentence. But yeah, we help companies go to market in a modern way. Part of that is definitely AI. So we work with all the way from Y Combinator companies to startups and larger enterprises with different kind of solutions for each segment. But always the kind of underlying promise is how you go to market faster, more efficiently in a scalable way. And that, as I said, includes a lot of AI in the back end.
That's good. Not bad introduction. Yeah. So I will start with something like more personal. I saw that you scaled SalesCaptain to 3 million ARR, but also lived as a digital nomad for around 4 years, as I remember. So what part of that journey actually shaped you the most as a leader of the company?
I would say the toughest months that we've had, the months where our MRR dipped versus what it was before. Because as a founder, and I'm somewhat new to the role, I think one of the hardest things to do is disassociating the wins and the state of the business and the growth of the business, or when the business is not doing that well, from your own personal sense of self-worth and happiness. And there's like obviously many factors that contribute into that. So I would say like one of the biggest kind of wins for me was learning to take things a little bit less seriously and learning to have a little bit of fun and kind of creating that distance between like myself and how I feel and the business itself. And I would say like most entrepreneurs that I meet, like intuitively, because it's almost like your own kid, struggle with that, whether they're at the beginning or later in their journey. But I think it's like one of the things you have to master. So yeah, those months haven't been many, but they've been definitely, they've given me the trigger to be like, okay, I don't like this. I don't like associating myself with this. Let me try and take a little bit of a distance.
how do you came with that moment to actually you can start living with that, to not associate with that current issues which were like showing at that time?
I'm not an expert. I'll tell you what has worked for me. It's acts of self-love, mostly in giving yourself space. That can mean different things to different people. For me, was
Mm.
adding more activities to my life, making sure I stay consistent with going to the gym, which is one of the things that really
Mhm.
energizes me. Going
Yeah.
for runs, hanging out with friends, going out on dates, going on trips. Like I would say, like journaling or meditating. These are things that have generally helped me because it kind of reminds you that there is more to life than work. And I'm someone that's going to probably, till my last years be working on something or cooking something. But yeah, work is definitely a big part of our lives, especially when we want to make a difference in the world and we want to impact the world for the better. But there is also something that's called self-preservation, and we need to make sure that we're alive and healthy and well tomorrow so that we can continue being on the journey. It is a marathon at the end of the day. It's not a sprint. So burning out even temporarily is not good for you.
Yeah.
And it's not good for your business success, which is kind
Yeah.
of counterintuitive for most funders. We're like, hustle, hustle, hustle. But there's only a certain amount of time that each of us can realistically hustle until it has an impact on our health, on our emotional health, on our bodily health, and then that actually impacts the growth of the business. So it's in our best interest to be taking breaks, to be taking days off, be mindful of how we treat ourselves, be mindful of taking breaks in between. That's it.
Yeah, and there is one sentence which says, if you don't love yourself, you can't love the others. You can't show the love to others. So by
Yeah,
being like an example that you care about your body with gym,
yeah,
with running, with everything else, you also show the others that first you take care for yourself and you can care for the rest in your
exactly.
team and the family. So
Yeah.
this is really crucial, and thanks for sharing this. uh, so let's discuss a little bit the outbound now, the whole
Mm-hmm.
agency expertise. By your opinion, what's like the main mistake which actually SaaS founders are make when they're trying to set up the outbound as a channel for filling the pipeline?
The main mistake, because there's a lot of things that you can get wrong, but I would say like the number one thing people get wrong is they assume the channel doesn't work because they've failed with their first, or second, or third campaign. From what we've seen, there's three main levers to being successful with outbound: the targeting, who are you reaching out to,
Mhm.
the messaging and the offer, what are you communicating to them, what are you saying, and what's your call to action, and then the deliverability,
Mhm.
the infrastructure, how whether you reach via email, LinkedIn, open rates, click rates, etc. Deliverability is the easiest one to get right, and it's typically influenced by how good or bad the targeting and the messaging is. For a startup, I would want to assume that they know who they want to sell to, so that's the first thing, which means that the biggest thing that typically people underestimate how much they should optimize is their offer. Like, what are you
Yeah.
communicating? What is the number one hook? What is the number one problem for the industry that you want to sell to? Which is directly correlated to a company's product market fit. Because if you know the problem, if you know the solution, if you know the
Mhm.
market, it should be relatively straightforward to come up with a good offer. So in order to achieve that, you actually, and this is also counterintuitive, you need your campaign to fail first. You need to receive negative replies, and then you need to look at the feedback from the negative replies in order to be able to optimize your offer. A really good example is we work with B2B SaaS business, UK based. They do property management. It's a
Mhm.
SaaS business. And when we reach out, the biggest kind of negative indicator or objection we receive is we're already working with a different provider, with a different
Yeah.
SaaS business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're locked in typically in a yearly contract. So when you see that, us continuing to pitch, booking a demo call is not going to get us any results because these people don't want a demo. Like,
Yeah.
they're 6 months into their contract, they don't care. It's far from
Too early,
where
yeah.
they are. So for us, changing the call to action, for example, to ask, what software are you using, and being able to also add into the mix, if we can identify the software that they use, and mention, if you use platforms A, B, and C, our biggest competitors, you might be missing on X, Y, and Z. Is this something that you're looking for in your next contract renewal? So changing the offer, changing the call to action resulted in this campaign actually becoming one of our highest performing campaigns. So, but if you don't go through the pain of getting negative replies, of having your campaign not perform well and sticking with it and learning from it and iterating, there's no silver bullet. Like there's no agency or human in the world that can say, I know exactly what works and I'll get it, to work in a month. It typically takes a bit of iteration, and that's the hard part of running performance-based marketing, whether you're trying to get ads to work or outbound, any cold channel. That's it. We can all sell when someone's coming referred to us, right? Because the establishment of trust and most likely the understanding of what the problem is there. The challenge is, how do you sell to cold audiences? And this is a big part where there's a gap between businesses being able to survive when they've exhausted their founders' network. Like there's a gap in the company's growth where if they're not able to build those cold channels and being able to actually tap into new markets, not new markets, but new people from the market that they haven't been in touch with, that their founder doesn't know, that haven't seen them before, etc., they typically stall.
Yeah. So if I understand you well, you first try to identify the ICP, then is the messaging right, and the offer as the main three things. And then you iterate a lot just to get as much as no's as possible. Then you are shaping the offer and trying to find what actually could potentially work for. And how much iterations usually takes until you find maybe the best version of the messaging?
It genuinely depends on a lot of factors. Like it typically, for an iteration cycle to be meaningful, it takes about 2 weeks, and you need like 3 or 4 meaningful iterations. So we say on average that it takes like 2 to 3 months. But there's other cases like how hard is the market? Are you an e-com brand, or an e-com software trying to go to market in the tariffs era, or when COVID hit? Like there's things that have to do with your market that can make significantly easier or harder to get success with your campaigns. Pretty much, it's like how much demand is there from the market. But other than that, yes, it's that iteration cycle, which can be longer if you don't necessarily know what you're selling and who you're selling it to and why. It can be shorter. Like when we work with Series B, C companies and above that already have product market fit, that have landing pages on their website that address the different segments, that address the different pain points. They know who their competitors are, and they know what their USPs are against every competitor. Typically, those campaigns can work like in the first week of running them. But it's not the rule. It's not like every campaign is going to work. And also, we've had campaigns where it was a new product, and because it was an AI offer, it was hot, it was disruptive, it worked from the first week. So unless you test, you don't really know what's going to happen, because you need the live feedback from the market. And this is what I love about Outbound the most. You're going to get replies, good or bad.
So you have the feedback earlier, and then you decide how to do the next
it's
approach.
It's about leveraging. It's about doing something with the feedback you received versus just saying the campaign is a failure. Yeah, it is, but why? That's it.
Great. So at TechPond, I was at your presentation where you actually present like a funnel, which was in 3 phases. The first one, as I remember, was the AI-led
outbound.
Then was the intent signals. And at the end was like something which I was impressed by, inbound-led outbound. Can you just tell us, how did you came to that framework, and what problem in the market maybe inspired you to create that framework?
I've been in marketing for the last 10 years. So for me, I'm not a sales guy at heart, I'm a marketer at heart. And when you're talking about any market, there's kind of a saying that 95% of your clients are not ready to buy from you. There's a 5% part that's ready to buy, which is like the bottom of funnel. So when we were doing outbound, we quickly realized that a big part of what people perceived as outbound, and this had to do with the data that was available and the AI that wasn't available, was people would consider outbound to be strictly reaching out to cold audiences. Pretty much what we call like AI-led outbound. You pick a niche. Let's say e-commerce brands on Shopify doing more than $10 million a year, and you reach out to them because they fall under that category. That's not a bad thing to do, but it's not the only thing you should be doing, because there's these kind of things called intent signals that allow you to identify with some degree of certainty that someone's most likely, from that top audience, someone's most likely interested in buying. So they're not a cold audience, they're somewhat of like a warmer audience because they have probably already identified the need. So the difference in the funnel is pretty much in buyer awareness. There's this framework of problem aware, solution aware, brand aware. So top of funnel, if you're reaching out to someone who's a cold audience, hopefully they're problem aware because your targeting is specific enough. Like if you reach out, let's say to the e-com brands that I mentioned, and the thing that they have is they don't have a CFO and they're making more than 10 million a year, and they don't have anyone on their team with like the title called finance, they are probably experiencing the pain that managing their finances is a mess. They might not have experienced it, but there's a good chance that they have because of the data that you've put together and because of your targeting. This is called outreach. It's amazing, but people, hopefully they're problem aware. And then I said, like, what if we also can identify people that are solution aware, that they're already looking for those types of solutions. And they're looking for those types of solutions because maybe they're in a Facebook group called e-commerce finances, or they're following someone on LinkedIn that posts about, like it's like an outsourced CFO for e-com brands.
So this is if you're part of the funnel, right?
Exactly. Or they're hiring for a CFO, or they're hiring for someone called finance analyst. So if you can identify that the company is actively looking for a solution, those companies are solution aware. And then at the bottom of the funnel, you have companies that are aware of the problem, aware of the solution, and aware of you as well. So people who have visited your website, people who are in your CRM, people who follow you on LinkedIn, these people understand that there is a problem. They understand there is a solution out there, and they're also aware of your brand. So if you ask me which clients are the most likely to buy, it's that bottom of the funnel. The problem with that framework is intent signals campaigns and bottom of funnel campaigns typically have very little volume. Yes, it's people who are most likely to buy, but the chances that someone has expressed interest in a solution, so middle of funnel, intent signals, and they belong to your ICP, you might end up with like 50 or 100 prospects a month. So how do you get sustainable results by only reaching out to 50 or 100 people a month? Does it mean you shouldn't be reaching out? No, you should be. But you should also be stacking all three parts of the funnel. And then bottom of funnel, like you have your existing clients have just hired someone new. A decision maker in an account that you already have as a client moved to a different business. A client has expressed a problem and has churned, and you've released a new feature. There's so much or you pretty much do your job right, and you have a lot of people visiting your website, maybe signing up for a demo, getting a free trial, engaging with you on LinkedIn. So there's all this kind of these signals that are not middle of funnel. Like these people are aware of you. So if you just pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, I saw you on the website. I saw you looking at their pricing. Do you have any questions?" That segment is the most likely to buy. So kind of our thesis is you have to stack all three layers. Obviously, starting with top of funnel so you can get sustainable results, but then you should immediately start building both the middle of the funnel intent signals campaigns and bottom of the funnel, like people who are visiting your website. It obviously depends on the size of the company. That a company who's just starting out doesn't really have bottom of funnel, so they should start with cold campaigns and then intent signals and layer those types of campaigns. Companies that are more mature, they might actually start with bottom of funnel because their problem, and this is like a webinar we did with Clay, it's like they've mapped out their market, but they have so many contacts in their CRM because of the brand awareness that their real challenge is how do they prioritize who their salespeople speak to? Because realistically, they can't have infinite numbers of AEs in-house. So for them, the issue is like, how do you use signals for the people who are bottom of funnel, that are inbound led, that know about us, that have signed up for a demo, to actually understand that this client, which is like a 20, 50, $100 million company, has done free demos with us, or the 5 people from their team have signed up and they have the titles of A, B, and C. So let's reach out to them and get them engaged. So that's kind of like the model.
Yes. So that's like pretty great framework. As I understand you're suggesting to start with all three, but first define in which stage your company is, and the last one, which is like the most warm leads, is with less volume. So you start with that, you're more mature.
If you're starting out, you don't have volume, you don't have people on your website, right? If you're a new business,
have to bring something.
Yeah, you have to start from the top. But if you already have people in your funnel, maybe your issue, and this is obviously company specific, and we do an audit in the beginning. If you already have people on your website and they're not converting at the rate at which you would like them to convert, you should be running inbound led outbound. Or if you have like webinars, things like that, people generating signals by joining your webinars, submitting forms on your website. If you have a lot of SEO traffic, if you're running paid ads, if you're doing a lot of organic marketing and have the outcome of that, you should leverage inbound led outbound.
That's cool. So about the last thing, can you share some specific example for some client maybe who has great results, how actually this was implemented into their processes?
Yeah. One of the examples we have is a client that has 2 buckets of signups, trial signups in their software that they call unserved. And they are unserved because either they're signing up with a Gmail and the company doesn't know if it's a big or small account, or technically they would indicate that they have a team size below 10 people, and this is a software that is kind of programmed for larger kind of businesses. But it might be the case that it's a faulty selection. So one of the things that we did is we gave them like a quick audit of the last 1,000 prospects from each of these buckets, and we identified quite a few big customers in there. So the funnel that we built is, as soon as someone signs up, if they sign up from a Gmail address, or if they sign up and they indicate that they're a small company, we'll do a real-time enrichment using Clay. And then if we identify that they belong to one of these groups, like a big enough company or a company whose actual size is different, then we'll ping the AEs, route the lead accordingly. We'll do an automated touch, but then the AEs know, they inbound BDs pretty much know that they need to be touching on that account. That was like one of the activities that really made sense for them because they've built their SEO presence for the last 10 years. They receive thousands of signups every month. So their team, similarly to Clay, has limited potential and limited capacity to take on those leads.
Yeah. So SEO actually helps you in that final pipeline. If people who are coming are targeted, but then you should have some mechanism to actually capture these organic leads.
Exactly.
That's great. You mentioned on that presentation that targeting competitor followers is also like some strategy which should work. Can we go a bit deep about that part? How you actually leverage that?
Yeah, there's a kind of gray hat right now where you can go on LinkedIn and you can scrape someone's company followers. And that can be any company on LinkedIn right now. So if you do that and then you enrich and segment those followers to remove clients, remove team members from the business and remove your actual competitors from the list, then you end up with a list of the people that have just become aware of a new company. So you can dynamically reach out to these people. Kudos to Frank Saunders, who mentioned that you should be doing that on a weekly basis. We typically do it like monthly. But for him, like he identifies like the few new companies and reaches out.
And in that outreach process, you're mentioning that you're following the competitor, and then you
ideally
offer
don't want to do that.
Solution?
Yeah, my kind of principle there is you might be able to tell someone is wearing a red underwear. You shouldn't mention it in your outbound because a lot of times it gets you into trouble. So you should find a different reason to mention. Maybe you can say, P.S., if you're aware of tools X, Y, and Z, and you can mention 2 or 3 of them, this is how we're better.
Okay.
You don't have to explicitly say to them in their face, I targeted you because you did X, Y, and Z, because you're admitting to violating, LinkedIn's kind of rules. And it's not a good thing to do. And it creates bad rap, and, it shouldn't be the case.
Yeah. And when like the marketing team has these signals from the mid and the bottom of the funnel, how they actually handle that, or what's the thing that they often ignore and could actually bring them results and fill the pipeline?
Yeah, so the old model was that there was a disconnect between marketing and sales. Marketing would be responsible for generating, maybe capturing those signals, but then there was nothing done with it. So the model that we were discussing with Clay is for every company that touches their funnel, they track 2 things. They track 3, but like 2 of the primary ones. Account fit score, how close is the company to being your ideal client? And then account behavior score. So how engaged is the company with you? Because if someone just goes to your website, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to buy. But if they've visited your website 20 times over the past month, there's a high likelihood that they are interested in buying. So the problem becomes, how are you able to feed your A's and your BDs only the information of the people who have both a high account fit score and a high account behavior score first, and then you can go into the other buckets so that they know what to prioritize. Because most companies right now, they have a Slack channel, let's say, where all their website visitors coming in, but there's no mention how many times has this company visited the website, how close are they to our ICP. So the A's and the BDs become distracted with more information than they know how to handle and how to action. So the biggest kind of leverage there is being able to use those two scores and calculating those two things. And you can do that on the back end using Clay. And then only notifying or assigning those prospects, those companies, those accounts to your sales team once they become warm enough. For the rest, what marketing can do, for example, is if someone's a high account fit, like they match our ICP, but they're a low behavioral fit, like they haven't expressed enough interest, those prospects, those companies can be funneled back to marketing into, let's say, a LinkedIn ads retargeting audience or an educational campaign. So I wouldn't say it's like what marketing can do. I would say it's what can the company do as a whole and how can we bring the different departments of the business together. Marketing should definitely spend time both with bottom of funnel prospects in terms of, running webinar ads, case studies, calls to action, but they should also take care of that part of the funnel where people are a good fit, but they're not ready to buy yet. And then sales should be directly forwarded the people who are both a good account fit score and a good behavior score.
Just to take the phone and call them immediately when they get enough information. Yeah, that's great. So all of this sounds and looks great. And I suppose that in the backend there is a bit bigger team that should handle all of this properly. And usually it's underestimated that maybe one person can actually lead this whole process. So can you tell us a bit what's the team behind who should do this in a professional way, not just for the sake of having it as a process?
Yeah. So definitely you don't want to overwhelm your team by trying to implement everything at the same time, right? And that's why I said, you have the funnel, you have to pick your battles, you have to pick where to start from. If you don't have any pipeline, start from top of funnel. If you do have pipeline and your issue is how do we convert more, and that's typically a good use case for PLG startups that have thousands of signups versus fewer clients, start from bottom of funnel. Leaving that aside, what does the team look like? There is the notion that all you need is a go-to-market engineer, like someone who's technically aware of how to use AI, how to pick AI models, how to maybe code, whether it's JSON or Python or something more complicated than building scrapers and connecting different tools and data sources, etc.
Yeah.
That is right to an extent, but someone who's a technical expert alone cannot drive business impact. It's literally the equivalent of saying someone who has a HubSpot CRM certification can be a head of sales and run sales for a $200 million company. So the false assumption that teams have is just hiring one technical person is going to solve the whole thing. What we have found at SalesCaptain is you need at least two different types of roles. You need the engineer type, you need the go-to-market engineer, but you also need the go-to-market strategist, someone who understands how do different channels work. What is our positioning statement? How do we compare against competition? How do we copyright in a way that we can convince people? So one person is the more creative one, the more strategic one. The other person is the more technical one, the more analytical one. You need at least a combination of those two people. They don't have to be called go-to-market engineer and go-to-market strategist. The go-to-market strategist could be the head of sales, could be the head of marketing. It's someone that fits those boxes, they understand messaging, they understand positioning, they understand marketing, and they can work with someone technical who also doesn't have to be a go-to-market engineer in that regard. It can be someone from sales, for example, that has a RevOps background and understands AI to the core, but also someone from marketing who understands the different tools and how to use them and is passionate about those things. So my biggest takeaway is these roles can organically come from within the business. It doesn't have to be that you hire for someone new. So it's a combination of these two people. Now, depending on how much data and how much volume a company has, you can decide whether you need maybe 2 or 3 engineers and one or 2 strategists. So that's kind of like the biggest difference. But at the core, in terms of the skill set and the people required, it's a mix of those two people. If you're a company that knows their market really well, that has product market fit, that has a really strong marketing team, has a really strong sales team, maybe all you need is an engineer. Someone that can work directly, as I said, with the head of marketing, the head of sales. You don't have to have a dedicated strategist, but someone who can work with your existing team to drive results. But what we've seen generally is like, unless that technical person has someone that can copywrite fast, understand what good messaging and what good offers work, can iterate based on the market feedback, that person can end up not being successful. And I spoke to CMOs of multiple companies that have hired just for that person, and they had them run outbound. And then they were like, oh, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Because you run a campaign on one signal of targeting people who visit your website versus stacking multiple signals, for example. So just knowing how to set a foundational workflow is not strategy. It's not a replacement for getting relevance, for getting personalization in place. So these are the skill sets. How many people decide, each company decides to buy, or how they decide to staff their go-to-market team. It's based on who the company is, if they're PLG, SLG, an agency, and what kind of skill set they already have.
Yeah. So that's great. So as I understand, you need at least two people, the GTM strategist and a GTM engineer. Strategist knows the messaging, how to analyze everything, to analyze the competitors and so on, to set up the stage, and then the engineer
doing multi-channel, so being able to tell you, website visitors that are visiting the pricing page, we can pull them as a LinkedIn ads audience. I don't know how to do it, but I can tell you we can pull them as a LinkedIn ads audience, and at the same time we can also email them. So it's someone that understands also what kind of messaging works for every channel. Because if you try and copy paste your ads messaging into an email, into a LinkedIn message, it's not going to work. So it's someone that understands how the business works, how the market works, and how kind of messaging works at scale. And understanding, for example, when do we involve the AEs or the BDs in the process? When do we leave it to automated outbound? What accounts are tier 1, 2, 3, 4? What criteria do we use to map those accounts? They don't know maybe how to do the actual process of assigning the scores, but they know if they visit the pricing page, add 1 point. If they visit the book a demo call page, add 2 points. If they use our product heavily over 90 days, add 20 points. So someone has the understanding of the models and the market and the messaging, and someone has the understanding of how to build it. Like the architect and the engineer.
But you should expect from both of these guys to actually sell. They just have to generate the lead. And someone else
exactly. So you then should have someone doing sales. Like you should have like one AE, one BD. You should have that part of the team. Also, like oftentimes, like people ask me, but can't there be like one individual that does both of these roles? And my answer is typically yes. And there can also be unicorns, but trying to only find someone with like 10 years of experience and having done both roles and being both technical and analytical and creative, it's not easy. So, and we came across the problem because we have to hire a lot, given what we do, like given that we implement these things for multiple companies. So it was our own genuine hiring challenges that pushed me to say, rather than trying to find like these unicorns that they have to be super highly paid and they're really hard to find, they're typically already employed, we might as well break down the role into two skill sets, and we don't have to hire for both skill sets. We can look at the company internally first, and then whatever is missing, we can hire for.
And like instead of hiring, if someone decides to work with SalesCaptain, how that actually works with you? How do you start like the onboarding?
We have like a 10-page onboarding form that allows us to really quickly map out, what the ACPs are, what the assets are, landing pages, awareness of the market, existing close rates, the structure of the department. And then what we do is we literally allocate a team that includes a strategist, an engineer or multiple engineers, data people, and then deliverability and infrastructure. So we then connect on Slack. So it literally happens like an extension of your team. Because the reality is, if you can find those people that can really easily understand your market and also have the technical expertise, you might not necessarily need to hire for that role in-house. Like you can hire or work with an agency or someone who has that skill set already in-house and is also being aware of what the market does and where it's going and which tools to use. And also has the benefit that they're not tied to a specific provider. Like if tomorrow there's a different tool that can do the job better, we're going to go with them. We only care about getting results. So like we're laser focused on that. It doesn't matter what
And
tool
like
is paying us the highest affiliate commission, for example.
If you find that something is missing from what we discussed before, from maybe not clear ICP offering or whatever it is in the process which you need so the campaign is much more successful, do you actually help in this process to define these things better than start the outreach, or you just start something, then
that's a good question.
Iterate, then get feedback?
So unless you have these elements or you're able to work with someone that can help you uncover those elements, your campaigns are simply not going to work. So the reason why we have a strategist, and the reason we're not just order takers, like we could have had the engineering team and be like, okay, here's a form, give us the brief, this is the audience, these are the titles, we'll just reach out to everyone, that's it, we're not going to question it, we're not going to ask you. So maybe we break down this ICP into like this segment of service businesses, let's say, and software businesses, and then reach out with different case studies, different messaging, etc., etc. So where we come in and where the skill set actually becomes valuable, because I genuinely believe that in a year or two from now, you could be able to go on Upwork and hire someone for $50 an hour that can implement. I'm not saying about doing the strategy and helping you go to market, but they can implement. So what I'm seeing is like the implementation part is probably going to be commoditized. So where you can actually offer value is in being able to understand someone's audience. And the benefit that we have, because we work with hundreds of different projects and markets every single month, is we're able to really quickly pull together what has worked from here, what has worked from there, what we've seen here, what we've seen there. And then if it doesn't work, our entire team comes together and we have a call that we call it like the red campaigns call. And we all sit down and ideate, because as a team you can do a lot more versus an individual. So that's the benefit of working with an agency, really. Like it's top market awareness of what's going on, what are the tools, what are the processes, what are the hoaxes also, like what are the LinkedIn gurus saying that you shouldn't really follow and they're just saying it for engagement. And then secondarily is being able to really quickly understand and help you go to a better understanding of your ICPs, of your targeting. Like we have a new client that just signed with us yesterday, and I was reviewing their website, and it seems that we've already worked with a similar business like a year ago. So there's so many learnings that we can literally, map from like one process to the other. It doesn't mean it's copy paste, because every product is unique. The market is not the same as it was a year ago, but we do have a starting ground. We don't have to go from zero.
Yeah, it's similar with us with the SEO and LLMs optimization. When you have industry knowledge, it's much easier to start a new client from the same industry. You don't replicate everything, but you have the ground, as you mentioned.
Otherwise, you can only keep the clients that are already successful with their marketing, their positioning. And if we're being realistic, it's not a really large number of companies. Like there's a reason that not many companies grow past 10 million, past 50 million, past 100 million. Like it's hard to have these things in place. And as an agency, you can't afford to only work with the company that has product market fit, that is a Series C and above, that is like an enterprise that has, because, working with Nestle, for example, is super easy. They have brand awareness. Whoever you reach out to, they're going to respond. Working with YC startups that have AI offers, super easy. Everyone has FOMO. Everyone wants, to see how AI is disrupting their industry. Super easy. Like I don't even have to question. Like I know that someone coming to us with those characteristics, they're going to be successful 90% of the times. But like you can't sustain a business only working with those cases. So it's the failures that we've had that allowed us to save these things, to allow to understand the importance of the offer, the importance of raising a flag and being like, hey, we know the campaign isn't working. It's not working because deliverability is bad. It's working because we don't have the main hook for the market. People don't care. And with Outbound, it's easy to interpret the types of replies you receive. It's typically people saying you're spamming them, meaning you have the wrong audience, or people saying I'm not interested, it's not a priority right now, simply not responding, meaning you're not harassing them, you are talking to the right people, but what you're saying is just not interesting enough. So that's it. Like that's all you need. Do I have the right audience? Am I saying something that's interesting enough for them to care? There's nothing else. If you mess up those two things, your deliverability is going to go down, and then your stats are going to go down. You're going to have to pause the campaign. If you're able to just answer these two things, am I talking to the right people? Do they resonate? Do they understand the language I use? And then, am I saying something that they care about? Am I using the terms that they use? Like if I mention go to market and you don't understand what go to market is, chances are we might not be
You're
might
not
not be a
talking
good
to the
fit.
right ICP.
Exactly. Because if I tell you like we're the number one, let's say, partner for clay, and you're like, what is clay? I'm like, if that doesn't matter to you, we're probably in the wrong kind of conversation. So it's just these two things. Am I talking to the right people? Am I saying something that's making it interesting enough? There's hundreds of frameworks for how to identify your ICP or how to go deeper. And there's infinite amount of frameworks for how to write your message, how to restructure your offer. But identifying what the problem is not hard. That's it. So once you have the problem, then you can start brainstorming what those solutions are. And that's why, like, when we review an account that's not doing well, we obsess about like what's the number one issue. Is it targeting? Is it deliverability? Because targeting and messaging have stayed bad for a while and it's gone bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Or is it the message and the offer? That's it.
That's great. So by now we covered the framework which you had. We covered the people which you need for the team and the difference between should you hire in-house or just start with an agency maybe. Before moving till the end, can you tell us more about your book called Email Secrets? Because it's considered like the Bible of modern outbound. So maybe sharing one, two insights which people should take from out of this book.
Yeah, so the funny thing is I wrote it a year and a half ago, I think. The foundations haven't really changed. The fact that you have to obsess about your targeting and your messaging and your deliverability and the technical infrastructure, like that's, I think, one of the components that's there. Another thing that we found out and that we actually built at SalesCaptain in order to be able to drive results is what we call the campaign plan. So every single month, towards the end of the month, we build a plan for the next month, including what ICPs we're reaching out to, what segmentation strategy we're using, what are the main hooks in the message, and also how many prospects we're doing per ICP per campaign. And having that framework allows us to then look at the results at the end of the month and be like, this segment worked best versus that other segment, and this offer worked best versus this. And I think it's that kind of structure that most companies don't have. They typically just look at the campaigns on instantly. They have no idea how many prospects they've added to each campaign. They're just like, oh yeah, this campaign worked. Yeah, but why did it work? Was it the targeting? Was it the messaging? What variation of those? Exactly. Because when you're doing this at scale, you really have to be mindful. A, do I have the lead lists ready? Do I have enough leads? Because maybe the issue is you upload leads at the end of every month. The leads get exhausted mid-month, and then you have no bandwidth. So it allows us to kind of operationalize running Outbound. And I've laid out the framework and I've shared the templates that we use within the book. But yeah, the funny thing is that even with AI being a big part of the process, the foundations, like the fundamentals, haven't really changed. Yeah, it's exactly those same things. And I think it's why the book is like evergreen in a way. It doesn't rely on the channel itself. It just gives you an idea for how to make it work.
That's great. So buy the book and read it.
It's a good start. Like typically people that want to work with us, I'm like, have you like, it's a good educational material. Like I literally wrote it like spending time and using the actual templates that we use, because at some point I genuinely felt I had to get it out of my head.
That's great. That's great. So as a final question, if you had to give like one piece of actionable advice, how to improve outbound tomorrow, what that would be?
How to improve outbound tomorrow. Try to identify why it's not working and which of the elements we mentioned is the number one issue. How you go about doing that definitely depends on where you are with your business, with your journey. Like it might just be hire someone on your Upwork to do an audit session for like, I don't know, $100 and to give you like the exact blueprint. This is why it's not working. This is where you go next. Hire someone in-house, work with an agency. Like it doesn't really matter how you go about it. It's just what matters is you do something about it. That's my number one thing. It's just saying that outbound doesn't work is bullshit. Because when I was at Outworld, and this was one of the reasons I wrote the book, this was one of the reasons I believed in Outbound and SalesCaptain, I used cold email to get all those names that you mentioned and a lot more, hundreds of speakers, like top-class speakers, Seth Godin, Ariana Huffington, Rory Sutherland, and a lot more people like that, to an interview with me. and negotiated like really good deals. And it all started from a cold email. I was nobody. Like, they didn't know who I was. I represented a brand. I represented an audience of 50,000 people that were joining. So there was something inherently valuable in my offer. And that's, I think, why it worked, but like, anyone can reach out. And that's the basic principle. It's like, don't give up, because chances are, if you know who you're talking to, you're just not providing them with enough value. And that was like one of the key learnings I had. It's like, if you iterate enough, like if I send you out an email and I say, I'll give you $100 if you, I don't know, jump on a 5-minute call with me, or if you do X, Y, and Z. It's like, a lot of people are going to say yes to that. The question is, are you? And a proof of it is a campaign that we're running with SalesCaptain. When we reach out to our ICP via email and LinkedIn, and we're offering to implement an intent signal for them for free. And we're reaching out to companies that we know they're doing specific types of activities, like running LinkedIn ads, being not so successful with their outbound, etc. And it works because we're offering them something that they care about. That's it. If you have something valuable to share, you should share it. You should use cold email. You shouldn't fear spamming people. That's the other thing. You can't spam people, because if I ask you, what is a cold email you remember that you received last week, you're not going to remember.
No.
It's like, there's a ton of ads in our day-to-day for products that have, female hygiene products. I can't use them. They're not relevant to me. I'll ignore them wherever I see them. The ads that matter to me, they'll stick, because my brain is fine-tuned to pay attention to those things. So it's the same thing with your messaging and with reaching out via email. It's like, or LinkedIn. If people care, if they're interested, if it resonates with where they are, they're going to respond. And you're not spamming them. You're providing value. And that's one of the things I tried to kind of instill in people in the book. It's like, it's your duty. If you have a solution to the problem that they're facing, it's your duty to identify them correctly, and it's your duty to make sure you end up in their inbox, because you're providing value. That's it.
That's great. Do you think we missed something to share, maybe, which was on your thoughts?
No, not really. Like, everyone understands that AI is driving change in how things are done. I would say the biggest thing that people should be paying attention to is how they can leverage AI to improve their data, not their messaging. That's where the biggest wins are, at least right now. When AI, I'm not talking about AGI and all that, like, I'm talking about like what you can do right now. It's like, AI is 70 to 80% better at segmenting data, doing manual research, responding to qualification questions, versus creating copy from scratch. So we should all be leveraging it the right way. It's not that it can do copywriting, it's just that it needs a lot of hand-holding, and you need to review a lot of what it does. Whereas data segmentation, classification, allowing you to really pinpoint your exact audience, that's where the true strength is. And that's where we're seeing the market go towards in terms of optimizing. And if we all don't do it, it's our competition is going to do it. So it's, if you know the direction, you should just do it. That's it.
Just leverage the AI. So we're coming to the end. I really enjoyed into this conversation. And I think we covered a lot, from the biggest mistakes SaaS founders are making in the outbound to the modern GTM engineering. So it don't just like talking tactics, but you explain the systems, the thinking behind, which I really appreciate, and which is like why this podcast actually exists. So for everyone listening, if you're serious about building a real GTM structure, not hacks, but quick wins, but build pipeline engine, you can trust Bill and reach out to SalesCaptain. Bill, again, thanks you for joining me. I'll leave your links in the description so people can connect with you, maybe learn more about SalesCaptain and dive deep into what you actually work. And you guys, if you enjoyed into this session, be sure that you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss some future conversation with SaaS leaders who actually bring stories about scaling, about innovation. I'm Milan
Milan, really appreciate you having me. I really enjoyed I genuinely enjoyed the conversation.
That's great. So until next time, keep leading, keep scaling, keep growing. See you. Bye-bye.